Being here this morning, this is actually the perfect size audience. Because we're going to be hands-on today. We'll do something a little different. You know, usually when you come to presentations like this, they tell you to turn your phone off. Does everybody have a cell phone with them?
Yes.
So, okay, get it out, put it on the table. We're actually going to use it.
What?
If we're going to tell you to bring your
Depends on how extensive it may be.
Do they need pens and paper?
Nope, unless they want pencil and paper.
Okay.
All they need is this right here. You got a cell phone, you're ready for action. All right, we got this. So who wants to move the world today?
I do.
World.
Save the world.
Before we leave today, you are going to move the world. I realize that's a big, bold statement, but I promise you, before you leave today, we're going to move the world. We're going to do it together. All right. So this is me, and this is our lovely 45-year logo on here, which is nice. So these are some of the things we're going to talk about today. We're going to start off just talking a little bit about what advocacy is and what the elected officials do. And how we can make a difference individually and collectively, how we get it going. This is meant to be interactive. Feel free to ask questions anytime you like about whatever it is we're working on. What is advocacy? What are we trying to do when we advocate? And by the way, I'm going to tell you, yeah, we're trying to change policy. And I'll tell you up front, I know there's that statement, no such thing as a dumb question. There is such a thing. But the only questions I'm qualified to answer are dumb questions. I have a lot of dumb answers. So just feel free to ask whatever questions you want. Yeah, we're trying to change policy. Now, what kind of policy are we trying to change?
We want to protect natural resources, and we're trying to get any policies that will do that.
Okay. And how do we do that?
That's why we're here.
All right. So how do we change policy? What's the structural
Bills.
bills?
Write
Okay.
a bill.
So
Write a bill.
we're trying to change the law, right?
Or an ordinance. Or ordinances.
Yeah.
Their own right ordinances, right?
Trying to change.
Or pass a resolution, perhaps.
They only last a year.
So let's
They're not
talk.
long term.
Let's talk about, since we're in New Jersey, let's start with the legislature.
Cool.
How many bills a year do you think the New Jersey legislature deals with?
Oh,
Just pick it. How many do you think?
how many do I think in
Yeah.
a year that get introduced?
Yeah.
100 or more, maybe
1,000. I have no idea.
Okay. Well, when they start the legislative session, the legislators have to introduce bills. They've got an administrative process they have to go through. A bill either gets introduced in the Senate, in which case it has an S in front of it, or in the Assembly, in which case it has an A in front of it.
Sometimes both.
Sometimes both. Although, for reasons that escape me, it's never the same number.
Right.
So a bill might be S13. In the Senate, the exact same bill might be A 563. Why they don't keep the numbers the same, I don't know. But they don't.
They like go consecutive.
Yeah, exactly.
Does each one go consecutive? The highest number 7 they have?
Yes. So they start with the first bill introduced is S1. First bill introduced in the Senate. First bill introduced in the Assembly is A. This is the current legislative session.
Does the number start?
The legislative calendar is 2 years long.
Oh.
So it's a 2-year period.
Is 1,000.
That's the bill. That's one of the bills that the number in the Assembly is actually higher than that by now.
That's
That's 4,218, and this was as whenever this bill was introduced, which was a few months ago. So you might be thinking, or at least I am usually thinking, how do they keep track of that many bills? You're a member of the Assembly, you're a member of the Senate. The short answer is you don't. There's no way a human being can keep track of that many bills
And read them.
and read them. So the way the process works, has anybody here ever been down to Trenton and seen the Assembly and the Senate in action? Okay, or you're studying. But the critical piece of the process really is in the committee hearings. So a bill gets introduced, then goes to the, stick with the Senate for a moment, but it goes to the Senate President's office, and the Senate President's office assigns it to one of the committees. They just assign it to a committee. Now, the Senate President and the Speaker of the Assembly have immense power in the state of New Jersey. The Senate President, they get a bill, they decide, I don't like that bill, and throw it in the trash.
What? Seriously?
Seriously.
One person.
Yes. The Senate President may assign it to a committee and tell the committee chair that bill is never to see the light of day. In which case, it will never see the light of day. The committee chairs also have a lot of power. The committee chair may get a bill, go back to the Senate President and say, I don't want to give this bill a hearing, and then they'll hash it out in the office and decide whether it's going to get it.
So it
In their
sounds to
committee.
me then that you should know who the, what did you call them, the chair of the,
It helps to know who the chair, what committee it's been
well,
assigned to.
no, before that. Who's
And-
sending it to committee? The chair of
Well, in
The
the
president.
case of the Senate, it's the Senate President.
the
Who
Senate?
is that now?
It's the Assembly, it's the Speaker, and the Senate.
I do.
Who's that now? Is it a name we know? No.
Will also be. Oh, that would be.
It does change from time to time.
Yeah.
So that committee process is really important because committees are typically 5 to 15 people. The Senate Environment Committee is 5 senators, 2 Republicans, 3 Democrats. When you are the party in the majority, you get to decide who sits on the committees. So you always make sure that your party has a majority. Democrats are in the majority in the Senate and the Assembly. So all of the committees will have a Democratic majority. The bigger committees are like the budget committee. There's a ton of people in the budget committee. There are a ton of people on the judiciary committee. Most of the other committees are 5 to 7 people in that range. So it helps to know what committee it's going to, who the committee chair is, who's on the committees. I'll show you where you can find all that in a moment. And it's really important to know who the sponsor of that bill is, because that can give you a pretty good indication of whether the bill is going to go anywhere. If the committee chair is one of the sponsors or co-sponsors of the bill, you can be sure it's going to get a hearing, and the answer is probably going to be yes, it's going to keep moving. If the Senate President is a sponsor, I guarantee you it's going to get to the floor of the Senate. It's going to happen.
If it's a Republican, is it probably got more? No.
It depends. That's a steeper bill. Absolutely. Republicans have steeper.
The first time I heard of the committees was Annie Don did something for EMT funding, and they asked us to write to them. Yeah, so the committee chairs
Yeah.
of their
Yeah,
committees.
and if you can pick up support from other Democrats, it can be a Republican bill and still be a good bill. All right, so we've got over 4,000 bills in the Assembly. We have time today to talk about 4,000?
No.
Let's deal with a manageable number. What's a manageable number? Can we handle 3?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, in my world, in my mind, I tend to divide people into 2 groups. There's the STEM folks, science, engineering people who have science, engineering mind, logical folks. And then there's the humanities, arts folks. So where's my STEM people? I'll tell you, my undergrad degree is in engineering, so I'm a STEM people.
Oh.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Where are my humanities folks? Okay. So we're going to talk about laws right now, so that this may seem like a challenge for the STEM folks, but we're going to cheat. We're going to start. Talking about Newton's 3 laws of motion. All right, I just lost all my humanities people. This is not the Titanic. We didn't hit an iceberg. Nobody hit for the life. We're okay. You're going to be okay. You know this stuff. I promise. I promise. I won't ask you a question today that you don't know the answer.
Yes.
So Newton had 3 laws. First law is actually in 2 parts. Does anybody who remembers Newton's?
I think I
first
can
law?
only remember the second, an object in motion will continue in
Say
motion.
it.
That's actually Newton's first law.
Oh, it's the
Perfectly
first,
right.
okay.
So not the race. An object in motion
Stays in motion
tends to remain in motion
unless
unless
We interact. We intervene.
unless what? Unless acted on by an outside force.
Three pens here, we're all like.
Oh, no. Where's our profits?
Okay, so who remembers the second part? Now you remember the first part. The first part is an object in motion tends to remain in motion unless acted on by an outside force. What's the second part of Newton's first law? Okay, an object at rest.
Stays
Stays
at
at
rest
rest.
unless acted upon.
Yeah. And there's a third one?
Now, that's, well, there is, this is actually only one.
One law is the first.
This is, first law is 2 parts. Maybe kind of cheated.
Dumbing it down.
No, I don't have to dumb this in. I can simplify it. Dumb it down. So the full iteration of Newton's first law is that an object in motion tends to remain in motion in a straight line unless acted on by an outside force. An object at rest tends to remain at rest unless acted on by an outside force. So where's my humanities folks again?
Like the entire.
All right, so why do I care? From an advocacy, from a policy perspective, why do I care?
Where the outside force.
If you're watching politicians obey Newton's first law of motion,
Yes.
if you think politicians aren't doing anything, you're probably right. You're probably right. And you know what? What's a politician's, what do they say in Star Trek? Prime
directive.
Prime directive. So what's the prime directive of politics?
Stay in office.
Exactly.
And that's exactly right. I mean, it may sound cynical, but it's exactly right. Their prime directive is to get reelected. And if you make people mad, you don't get reelected. Make people mad is a polite way of putting it. But make people mad, you don't get reelected. And the easiest way to not make people mad is to do anything. Don't rock the boat. If you think politicians are moving in the wrong direction, you might be right. And it's incumbent on us to be the outside force. So if you think politics isn't moving, it's up to us to be the outside force to get them moving. And if you think they're moving in the wrong direction, it's up to us to be the outside force to steer that ship, back in the same direction. All right. Anybody remember Newton's second law?
No.
This is a formula.
E equals MC squared.
That's right.
Not bad. You're pretty.
Four equals mass times acceleration.
There you go.
Right.
Or equals mass times acceleration. We're going to come back to that one in just a moment. And the third one, you would remember this third one?
No.
For every action.
Keep going up.
Yeah, the moving. Oh. He's ready to
You should have batteries on the dog. My dog is working now, so.
That's tonight. I don't want to keep you here all. Actually, I do want to keep you here all day. Yes, so I can't. What keeps you in your chair right now?
Gravity,
Okay. Gravity. So it keeps you from floating off.
the planet.
Okay.
Our scintillating interest in Bill Kibler.
Does the sun have gravity?
Yes,
Sure.
How do we know?
We're
staying in
positive.
orbit.
Because the Earth is still in orbit. Does the Earth have gravity?
Yes.
How do we know?
The moon.
Yeah, 'cause we're
Orbit
close to it.
us.
So I'm going progressively smaller here. Does the moon have gravity?
Yes.
How do we know?
Because when we go there, we don't float into space.
You have ocean lines.
Oh,
Because we have
Oh.
ocean time.
good, yeah.
That's how you see the moon's gravity in operation, twice a day, every day. Because it's not essential. So how small do we have to go before we don't have? Does a hummingbird have gravity?
A little bit.
What does a hummingbird weigh?
Wait, just a
An ounce, couple ounces.
About 3 grams, I think. Is
Oh,
the average. It's pretty
Yeah.
darn small. Do they have gravity?
Sure.
You have to
Sure.
go down to the
I
atomic.
don't know, his feathers aren't flying off them, well, I guess it's stuck in his skin, I don't know.
In the light.
Go ahead.
Everything that has mass has gravity.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, Peter.
So you were a chemist, not a physicist, but from a physics perspective, gravity is a force. Physicists refer to it as gravitational force. You put a little g down here to make sure we're talking about gravitational force. Anything with mass
Doesn't have to be in motion.
doesn't have to be in motion. Anything with mass has gravity. And we can calculate this. I'm not going to do this, but when I do this with high school students, then we can do math. I won't make you do math, but there is a gravitational constant. So you can calculate the force of gravity. A hummingbird weighs about 3 grams. You got to convert that to kilograms. We won't bother doing that. There's a gravitational constant, 9.8 meters per second squared. And you can actually calculate the gravity of a hummingbird.
Cool.
So while the big old Earth is sitting there exerting gravity on that teeny tiny little hummingbird and keeping the hummingbird from floating out into outer space, that hummingbird is at the same time exerting gravity on the Earth. How do we know that? In the circle. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. That hummingbird is exerting the same force on the Earth that the Earth is exerting on the hummingbird. So why don't we see that? Why don't we see the Earth move when a hummingbird lands in a tree? It's not even for 3 grams. I mean, how much is it going to move the Earth, right? It's a little bit. It's just a little bit. So everybody stand up.
Too bad.
Every time you get out of bed in the morning, you move the morning.
Ah!
You feel it?
Yes.
Yes.
You might not, because one person might not feel like enough to move. You guys can sit. One person might not be enough to make the whole world move in the right direction. So how do we move the world?
Love your analogies.
How do we move the
We
world?
all get together.
We all get
We
together.
all work
All right.
together.
You might have to do it more than once. You might have to get a whole bunch of people to get it together. But every person in this room, everybody here on Earth, has the capacity. You leave here today with a superpower. Your superpower now is that you know that you can move the Earth. Everybody else can move the Earth too. They just don't know.
Yes, yes.
So that's our job today. Today we're going to move the Earth. Let me go back. This is a very useful page to know. This is the New Jersey legislature's page. It's pretty easy to find. And you can find out who your member is, either by, they have a district list, or you can pull up the district map. So you can look on the map and see where you are and tell what district you're in. If you go here to the legislative webpage and click on your district, it will tell you who your senators are. So where we are right here, our senator is Anthony Bucco, and our assembly members are Laura Dunn and Marissa Sweeney. We are a very, very unique legislative district right here, because we have one Republican assembly member and one Democratic assembly member. That's very unusual. Typically, it's either 2 Republicans or 2 Democrats. This is a mixed district, which is kind of helpful, because if you need help from either party, you can do that.
How long has Marissa been here?
since January.
Yeah, she's.
Yeah, she just got elected in the last election. If you go to the legislative process, you can use this to go down and find bills, to go through you can look up bills here. Over here, you can actually search for bills. In the legislative process, you can look up the different committees, which are down here. So budget and appropriations. I'm just going to keep scrolling down until I get to the Environment Committee, just to show you how this kind of works. So here's the Senate Environment and Energy Committee. These are the members. Bob Smith is the chair. He's a Democrat. He's been the chair of the Environment Committee for a very long time. Linda Greenstein is the vice chair. She's been in the Senate for a long time. John McKean used to be in the Assembly. He's now in the Senate. He is definitely an environmental champion. All three of these are very good on the environment. Parker Space is a Republican, and Layton Tiger is also a Republican. And then these are the committee aides. So sometimes if you want to know what's going on with a bill and you can't find information on this page, just call the committee aides. They'll let you know what's going on. And then if you click on any one of these members, you can go to your legislators. You can look them up on the map, or if you know what district you're in, you can go there and click on one of them. But if you want to talk to one of these, you just click on them. There's Bob.
Can I ask you a question?
Yep.
So when you're looking for bills that are related to water quality issues, can you maybe walk us through how you do that?
Yep. So this is Bob Smith. He's the chair of the Environment Committee. He has a master's degree in chemistry and a master's in environmental science. So the beauty is, this is a politician that you don't have to explain the science to. If you think there tends to be, when people are trying to contact administrative or elected officials, there's often people are intimidated by the process. And you might feel like Bob Smith has been in the legislature for 40 years. He knows more than I do. Well, when it comes to a particular bill, we've already talked about how many bills they have in front of them in the course of the year. They probably don't know the first thing about the bill. The second thing is, it's very unusual to find somebody like Bob Smith who actually has a background in whatever it is you're in, especially with environmental issues. The probability of the senator or assembly member that you're talking to being smarter than you is about that big. I'm not kidding. You will know the subject more than they will, and you're probably smarter than them. If you happen to live in Andrew Zwicker's a senator from the Princeton area. If you happen to live in Andrew Zwicker's district, you're in deep trouble. Andy is he's the head of the Princeton Plasma Physics Lab, which is the lab that Einstein created at Princeton. So if you have to talk to him, you're probably, I don't want to judge anybody in the room, but you're definitely talking to somebody smarter than this guy. But he's probably the only member of the Senate where you have to worry about that. And Andrew Zwicker's actually an environmental champion, so you're in good hands when you're talking to him. And the advantage is, he knows what he's talking about. So he's also a pretty down to earth guy for a guy who works at the Princeton Plasma Physics Lab. Okay. So this will give you some information about them, which can be helpful, gives you a little background info. And then you'll see this right down here. There's a phone number for the legislators, and a contact your legislator link. And if you click on that, it will give you a form that you can just fill out with your information, put your email in there, tell them what the issue is. You can put a subject line if you want, and then you can just write your comments in there, tell them you're not a robot, and it will go directly to their office. Now,
Do you think this and sending an email are looked at equally, or is one better than the other?
we'll talk about that in just a moment. That's a great question. That's a very good question. And we'll talk about that in just a moment.
Can you just say what the URL is for the homepage for this?
Yeah, I will.
We'll do a follow-up email too.
That would be great.
With the links.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is really useful.
So if you go up to bills, when you go to bills and click on bill search, whatever information you have, put it in here, and it will come up. It will give you a list of the bills that are related to that. So if you happen to know the bill number, it's like A something or S something, you can look it up here. That's, if you happen to know the bill, that's fine. Most people don't know the bill number. It's also helpful if you have like a Senate bill and you want to know what the Assembly bill number is. So they're the same. You can put the Senate bill in there and it will tell you what the companion bill is in the Assembly if there is one.
Bill,
Yeah.
if you're talking to a legislative aide and you can describe the nature of the bill, would they be able to find the number?
Probably. And I'll tell you how they're gonna do that. They're gonna go to the same exact. They're gonna go on there.
Oh,
This is the easiest way for them to find it too. This really is the easy way. You can go to the subject. This, Tracy, generally is the best place to start because there's a whole bunch of subject areas.
But it usually-
And if you go down to environment,
Okay.
there's a list of environment. Some of them are fairly detailed, so flooding days, lakes,
Islands.
islands, islands, parks, forests, open space, so
Water
air noise and water
Water,
pollution. That will narrow
That,
that list of 4,000 bills down pretty quickly, just stuff that's in
okay,
the environment.
thank you.
And there's stormwater,
Yeah.
Yes.
water supplies and water.
If you happen to know who the sponsor is, it will give you a list of every bill sponsored by that person. And then you can just put some
Then there's
keywords.
keywords.
Yeah, so and that's just whatever you think would show up in the bill. If it's a stormwater bill, just put stormwater in there and see what comes.
So do you have I know you can like save the bills, like if you create an account, you can save them here, but do you have like I've started an Excel spreadsheet, how do you organize
In Excel spreadsheet.
in an Excel spreadsheet?
Yeah, that's the easiest way.
Yeah.
There isn't really a
When I
way to put
started.
stuff in here and export it easily. Okay, so let's get back to the issue of dealing with legislators again, because I recognize that this can be an intimidating process. And the goal today really is to remove any intimidation you may feel. What sorts of issues is the legislature dealing with on a daily basis? They got 4,000 bills. What are they? They're dealing with some big important stuff. Right?
Oh, budgetary stuff.
Right now, they're in the middle of budget, so they're dealing with the state budget. Legislators have to deal with things like, when COVID happened. It's like, what are we gonna do about COVID? So they have all these huge, weighty issues that they're dealing with. I don't know if you're gonna be able to read this, but I'll read. I don't usually read slides, but I will read this. This is an actual bill, Senate Bill 3239. And there's a synopsis for every bill. This bill establishes an exemption from the ban on the importation of woodchucks under certain circumstances.
Okay,
Which tells me two things. One, we must have originally had a bill that banned the importation of woodchucks. Somebody thought it was critically important that we ban the importation of woodchucks in New Jersey. And then somebody thought somebody's woodchuck was special and deserved an exemption.
Is what talking about?
that's a great one. That's great.
I realize AI has come up with a lot of really crazy stuff in the universe, but this is an actual bill in the New Jersey legislature. I didn't even have to leave the state to find this. So, although yes, sometimes they're dealing with very weighty issues. When you're talking to your legislator, or you're thinking about talking to your legislator, getting intimidated, oh my goodness, they're so busy, they have so many important things to do. I want you to remember that bill. Okay, but they're not that busy.
We're still on the same 2-year cycle as May 24.
I am embarrassed to tell you this. This bill languished in the legislature for about 10 years, and last year it actually got passed.
They have to keep reintroducing.
Yes,
Does it get a new number?
it gets a new number. I mean, because every 2 years you have to start over, so you get a new number. So a couple of years ago it was Bill 4000 something. I forgot why. It took me a little while to find it because the bill number didn't change.
But
But this bill actually passed.
so what's interesting about this, to my mind, is the terminology woodchuck would kind of date the
Right.
bill's first introduction, because this, okay, you're right.
It's a groundhog?
Groundhog, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's a regional thing, where I grew up in Fulton, which I'm not here to see the kind of ground I was playing. So that, so this bill, we'll just take this bill as an example, because they all follow the same process. This bill will have gotten introduced in a committee somewhere, and then gets a committee hearing. If you're going to influence a bill, show up at a committee hearing, because at the committee hearing, you've got 5 people for the Senate Environment Committee. You've got maybe 10 or 12 bills per committee hearing that they're looking at. So they are more likely, I'm not saying they will, but they're much more likely to have some familiarity with the bill. If this woodchuck bill showed up in front of the Environment Committee, I'm fairly confident they would have at least thought, what am I doing? I don't think I want to vote on this in public, because at the committee hearings, it's a very public vote. I don't think I want to stick my hand in here unless I know what I'm doing on this one.
So there are agendas that show what bills they're looking at, and we can show.
Yes.
So it's open to the public.
If you go to that page, back on the webpage for the legislature, you go through that where they have the Senate committees or Assembly committees, you can do the same thing. If you click on those, whatever committee you're interested in, it will tell you when their hearings are. The other thing you can do.
Road trips for today?
Maybe.
If you go to this, the legislature, okay, maybe it's under legislative process. Let me just back this up. If you go back to the legislature's homepage, when it takes you to the homepage, it will take you to the legislative schedule. And if any of these dates that are color coded, that means there's a hearing that day. There aren't usually this many hearings. The reason there are this many hearings is because they're in the middle of budget season.
I'll see it's.
Yeah, normally it would look more like this. The brown ones, or beige, or whatever color that is, are regular committee hearings or Senate and Assembly floor votes. The blue ones are budget hearings, just budget hearings. And typically April and May, all they do is budget hearings. But
Are they open to the public too? But
yes, they're open to the public too. Now, different committees operate different ways. If you want to speak in front of the budget committee, you need to get a legislature to invite you to speak. You get a legislature to invite you to speak, because it's tough. There are a lot of people speaking in front of them, and they don't just let anybody talk. The smaller committees, like the Senate Environment Committee, you can show up the day of the committee. They'll have a pile of slips there. So really, you just put your name and what bill you want to talk about, and you give it to one of these staff members. And when they discuss that bill, they'll ask for public input, and you'll get Senator Smith will call you up, and you can talk about the bill at that time, your position. So back to the woodchuck bill. So the woodchuck bill finds its way through the committee. They have a committee hearing, 5 people sit there and talk about the bill, and then they vote on it. And if the majority of the folks on the committee vote to move the bill forward, then it'll go to the floor of the Senate for a vote. Unless there is a budget impact. If there's a budget impact, it has to go to the budget committee first before it goes to it. So if anything that costs money, bottom line, that's oversimplifying it a little bit, but anything that costs money is going to have to go to the budget committee first.
Cost money to the state?
Yeah.
So it could cost money to the town without having to go to the budget?
Yes. Yeah, only if it impacts the state budget process, then it has to go to the budget committee first. So then it shows up in front of the Senate for a floor vote. You've got 20 folks in the Senate. How many bills are they voting on every time they get together? Rough idea. I have been there at the end of the session, but when the session's wrapping up in November, December timeframe. Senator Tracy shows up that morning, and there may be 200 to 400 bills that you are going to vote on that day. It's not every time they get together, because they have a floor session at least once a month, but they typically will have at least 60 bills voted on every time they show up. How do you know? Well, that's a good question. That's exactly where I'm going with this. And I'll tell you how they keep up with it. This is important. This is why that committee process is so important. You're going to be my Republicans. You're going to be my Democrats. You show up the morning of the floor vote, all the Republicans meet in the Republican caucus room in the State House, all the Democrats in the Senate meet in the Democratic caucus room in the Senate. There are separate caucus rooms for the Assembly, but all the Republicans are sitting in one room, all the Democrats are sitting in the other room. I don't know if you've ever heard the term before, but I'm the Republican whip. Okay, so you've got the head of the Republican contingent, and then either the second or third person down is called the whip. The whip is responsible for discipline. Part basically, everyone's supposed to make sure you do what you're supposed to, but boss wants you to do on the floor of the Senate. We're all going to get there. The caucus, you're going to show up. There's going to be a packet. It's like legal size paper, about that big, and every bill we're voting on that day will be listed on that sheet. There's going to be a yes or a no block next to it. This is everything you're going to see about the bill. That's synopsis right there. If you want more information, you better pull that bill up before you show up for the caucus.
And you know ahead of time which bills are.
Generally, yeah, not maybe a lot. Well, it can depend because sometimes bills may get added that morning.
So you don't have a lot of time to even prior to.
So what happens is Bill the Whip stands here and says, all right, everybody pick up your sheet. On Bill 3239, we're voting yes. Bill 3240, we're voting yes. 3241, we're voting no. 3242, we're voting yes. And you follow down the list and you check the little box. And if there's a bill in there that you have a problem with, the boss tells you that yes, you can't support the bill for some reason. Maybe you're allergic to wood chucks or whatever it is. It's incumbent on you to stick your hand up and say, I've got a problem with this. Now we're going to talk about it in caucus and decide, tough luck, you're going to do what the party whip told you to do. Or, okay, you got a good point, maybe you shouldn't support this bill. Or the majority leader, or in this case, the Republicans are the minority leader is going to give you a pass. You can vote no, everybody else is voting yes. So that when it comes to the floor votes, that's why you typically see in the Senate or the Assembly straight party line votes. And it doesn't take them that long to vote on a bill. The bill goes up, the clerk will read the synopsis, everybody starts pushing the button at their desk for either a yes or a no. It's a red button or a green button, so they don't get confused, because the legislators, like I told you, they're not all that smart, so they're color coded. And you typically will see party line votes on every bill, because they've been told that more.
So then bill just in advance to the next step, if it's, if it's approved, is it closer to becoming a law?
Yes. Now, in most instances, you have companion bills, there's Senate bill and Assembly bill. They typically will start out identical. Not always, but typically will start out identical. It might get amended in the committee. So the bill that gets passed in the Senate isn't always identical to the bill that gets passed in the Assembly. So then they go back to a joint committee, and the joint committee hashes out the differences. They work out the differences, they go back to the floor so that there's one bill. What they often do on the floor is if there's a Senate bill and an Assembly bill and there are slight differences in the Assembly bill, for example, may have been amended slightly. The Senate has both houses have a process where they can do what they call a substitution, where Senate Bill 1 is identical to Assembly Bill 2. So Senate Bill 1, we're going to substitute Assembly 2 for Senate Bill 1. And now they're voting on the same bill. And they can do that. And they often do. So they can avoid that whole process. All right.
And that's often the whip telling them to do it that way?
If you get to that point, it's often either the Senate president. At that point, the Senate president's office and the Speaker of the Assembly's office will usually get together and say, okay, we got to straighten this out. And then they'll just. If a bill, again, to illustrate how much power the Speaker of the Assembly and the Senate president had, when there's that big long list of bills coming in front of the two houses, if at the last minute the Senate president decides he has a problem with a bill, he can pull it and we'll get voted. Doesn't matter what happens. It'll just disappear from the agenda. And it happens pretty often. It may be an issue because all of a sudden the governor called down and said to the Senate president, hey, whoa. You guys are looking at this bill, that's gonna mess up something else. We're not prepared to deal with that right now. We need to pull that bill.
Does the party in power often know that the governor's okay with it and won't veto it?
No. Should they? Yes. The communication, in my experience, the communication between the governor's office and the legislature is dubious at best. And it tends to be a last minute thing. All of a sudden, the governor's office gets wind of a bill that's coming through the Senate and the Assembly. They don't like it. And then they got the phone, call the Senate president's office and say, this, you can't pass this bill.
So then is it eliminated for good?
It may get eliminated for good, or it may just wind up going back to committee and getting amended and start over. Yeah. Okay. So, talk a little bit about what legislators do. The answer to what do they know that I don't is not a thing. In most cases, you know, seriously, I mean, I realize that sounds sarcastic, but they're dealing with 4,000 bills. There's a 99.9% probability that you know more about what you're talking about than they do. And I realize when you talk to legislators or their staffs, there's this inclination to think, oh my goodness, they know more than I do. What if they start quizzing me? They're not going to quiz you because they don't know what they're answering. They don't. We talked about how many advocates we need to make a difference. Maybe one. How many advocates do you think? So there's a bill in front of the legislature. Let's say, for example, and I actually saw this firsthand, about 5 or 6 years ago in the lame duck session, which is after the election. The election's already over, so I'm an elected official. I got reelected. This legislative session is going to end in 2 months. We start a new legislative session in January. I've already been reelected. There are no consequences to the country for the next 2 months. Already been reelected. I can get away with murder. This is when the bill to give the members of the Senate and the Assembly a raise shows up inevitably. It's not going to show up before the election. It's going to show up 2 weeks after the election. And this happened about 5 or 6 years ago. They introduced a bill to give all the legislators a big pay raise. How many folks do you think it takes? How many members of the public does it take to influence a bill like that? How many folks are living in New Jersey?
7 or 8.
Pretty close to 9 million.
9.
Right around 9 million. How many of those folks need to weigh in to get the legislators' attention?
A lot. I think only a few because
More than 51%.
One.
I mean, one? Okay. In the case of that bill, it took about 200. I was in the State House for a completely unrelated matter that morning. We were supposed to have a committee hearing in the Senate Environment Committee and a floor vote on a bill that I was supporting and tracking. And all of a sudden, the entire State House came to a screeching halt. All the committee, there were like 8 committee hearings scheduled that day. Everybody got put on hold. All the legislators disappeared. And there were roughly 200 people that started calling the Senate president's phone. And the switchboard at the State House was going nuts. Because people were bent out of shape. And it
That
was,
they were about to vote themselves a raise.
Only 200.
and they wound up
Well,
paying 200.
200 people.
And they wound up pulling the bill that. It did not get voted on. It got yanked. And that's all it took. It was about 200 people to light up that switchboard and to make the Senate president rethink that plan. It's like, okay, maybe this isn't such a great idea. So it does take, it helps to have some people, but it doesn't take a huge number of people, especially at like a committee level, or if you're dealing with an individual legislator. They don't hear from constituents very often.
And they weren't there. They
Anytime.
were called.
Yes, all phone calls
Calling.
and some emails also. It was about 200 phone calls and emails, and panics at the end of the State House. They were like, whoops, they're about to get the pitchforks out. I think we better rethink this.
In that case, they were all calling the Senate president's phone.
Yes.
Good to know.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of phone calls and emails. What is the Okay, we're good. What's the best way to contact legislators?
Yeah, what's the best one?
So sort of trick question.
Well,
Phone is great.
Email.
Phone is great because everybody's got a phone. Email is great.
the form.
The forum is good because it's easy.
Oh, can I ask you this about the email? So in the body of the email or as an attachment with your letterhead on it? Doesn't it matter?
Ask that question again. We're gonna write an email. That's a good time to ask that question.
Okay.
So we got letters or phone calls, emails. You want to get a legislator's attention? A handwritten note.
And
You know how often they get a handwritten note?
No.
How often do you get a handwritten note anymore? Pretty much the same.
Yeah.
You want to get their
I
attention,
love that.
handwritten note. They know it's not a form. They know you didn't just cut and paste. They know it's not AI. Like, holy cow, somebody actually took the time to write a note, and it doesn't have to be a long note.
wow,
Wow.
Like a postcard or something.
That's old school.
could you attach a handwritten note to a type thing?
Yeah.
And that might help.
Social media can be good.
Like
if you're
what?
going to
Like
use
on their
social media-
Facebook page or something?
It depends on the legislator. So in that case, it kind of helps to know
Okay.
who you're writing to and how active they are on social media.
Got it.
Some are very active on social media. Some are, forget it, not happening. When Kip Bateman was a senator, he was on social media a lot. If he wanted to get his attention, Facebook was the easiest way to do it. Because he would respond to Facebook stuff, and he had his phone with him all the time. He was always checking.
Do they all have at least one legislative aide who might
Yes.
do that for them?
Yes, they all typically have they'll have a chief of staff and a couple of others. But yeah, and their aides, again, it depends on the legislator. Kip Bateman had fascination with Facebook for some reason. He always had his phone with him. He was always checking emails, always checking Facebook and that kind of stuff. Other legislators, they just have their aide doing that, one of their assistants. How many things should okay, so the bottom line is the answer to this, the best way to contact an elected official is, it helps a little if you know what your legislator responds to, but the more direct answer to that is whatever you're most comfortable. If you're happy, if an email works for you, use email. If the internet, like if Instagram or Facebook or X or whatever you're using is your mode of communication, use that. If you'd like to write a letter, write a letter. If you happen to know where your legislator is going to be and they're having a town hall and you want to show up and talk to them in person, that's fine too. Don't generally recommend doing that in the state house. You can. It's just hard to corner legislators. When they're in the state house, they're usually there for a particular reason. It's usually for a committee hearing or a floor vote. They're usually they have a lot of meetings. They go get told how to vote. And then they get out of there. Every member of the legislature has an office in the state house. If you're ever in the state house, go find one of your legislators' offices. If it's unlocked, which it probably is, open the door and have a look in. You'll find a room about that big. There will be a desk and a chair, and probably not a piece of paper or a pen in the place. I very rarely. There are a few that get used, like the Senate Majority Leader, the Senate Minority Leader. They have bigger offices. Their offices are typically used between hearings when they're meeting with people. But the individual legislators' offices, it's scary. They're just like vacant. So the state house, they're usually busy. It's better if you can get them in an informal setting.
They all have an office in their district, and that's right.
Yes.
Stuff, I have
Yeah.
just.
And that's just their conference room
Yeah.
at the state house.
Okay. So how many things you finally get your legislator pinned into a corner at a public, and go to the county fair and run into Senator Tank or whoever there. How many things do we want to end with?
One.
There's a great temptation when you finally get a hold of your legislator, or even when you're writing to them, to start going through the list of issues you have that they are not dealing with. They don't deal with. If it's something important, and you really want to get their attention, stick to the subject. You got a much better chance of sticking in their head if you stick to one. Okay. So how do we get started? Okay. What I'd like to do today, I'm gonna grab your phones out. Actually, normally what I would do is go through a little exercise and try to figure out what we're gonna talk about, but I have something in mind already. Great Swamp Watershed Association has applied for congressionally directed funding for one of our restoration projects, for our restoration project on the line. What that means is we need support from Senator Kim's office to get that legislatively directed funding passed. So we'll use that as an example. All right. So, generally speaking, the easiest way to get a hold of your legislator, whether it's federal or state level. I know this looks like a tourism website, it's not. It's Senator Kim's website, kind of a cool website, kind of a nice website. This is actually Senator Kim's website. It's kim.senate.gov, super easy to find. If you just Google Senator Andy Kim, it'll take you right to this. But and same thing with your other legislators. You don't necessarily, if you're looking for a state legislator, you don't necessarily have to go through that state legislation website, legislator's website. If you just Google, it'll pull up their office. And they will all have something here that says contact. So you just click on contact, and if you all can just go to, on your phone, go to Senator Kim's website. And if you click on contact, you will find this. Nice little, it's just meant to look like airmail. Does anybody send? Is there such a thing as airmail? You just.
Does that have to be the Wi-Fi?
I think so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Might be.
Bill, I've got a screen that says right here.
It's Grape Swamp 300.
Yes,
Yeah.
you're on. That's the right.
And then it's roll
You're
down.
on the right page. You just scroll down. You should.
Share your thoughts on
So
that.
keep going,
Yeah.
keep going.
Here.
Great Swamp 300.
Okay. Start putting it
This
on your
is a
phone.
bad place for Verizon all the time when I'm driving.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Believe me, we
No,
know.
so it's Great Swamp
Great Swamp
300 and then the hospital.
Big or small?
Small, all lowercase.
All one word, small d.
Great
Word?
Still
Just create
Oh, one word, what?
Okay.
Great Swamp.
Great Swamp, use one word, no accounts.
Connect.
300,
Oh,
Yeah.
that's the network,
Yeah.
that's Great Swamp.
Yeah, and the password is just Great Swamp, all lowercase.
Right.
Thank you. I should use my personal email, right, not my works.
Yes.
Stamps are really.
So this raises an interesting question. Nancy just asked, should I use my personal email or my work email? We are a 501c3. This is where the headwaters. What does that mean for us in terms of?
You're not allowed to advocate policy or something.
Yeah.
So that's a good answer. And that kind of illustrates why this is an important issue to bring up. 501c3s are allowed to advocate. They're allowed to advocate on policy issues. The restriction is you cannot advocate for or against an individual.
Policy,
Candidates. So if somebody's running for office, you can't say vote for Tracy, or don't vote for Tracy, because oh my goodness, she's a tree runner, or whatever. Can't do that. But we can advocate on issues. So we
And for
absolutely, yep, we can advocate for individual bills or advocate against individual bills. We can advocate broadly on policy, requiring doing something about climate change or on specific bills. And we can do that either privately and like basically lobbying or publicly. You just can't say
You
yes or no.
would have to whisper to somebody that so-and-so is the sponsor of the bill that we're advocating for, but you can't actually tell them to vote for them
So I'm
Yeah.
publicly.
stuck on which topic to choose, because environment is not in the drop down.
Where are we at?
After
I'm looking. Let me see.
your message, what is the topic of your message?
And you can't go any further if you don't choose the topic. What is the?
Yeah, it's got an asterisk, so that means it's
Is there another category?
No,
That's what I'm looking at. I think I would call
Fine.
this one, I think I'd click, well, infrastructure would work, or health. I think I'd go with health.
Yeah, there you go.
What is the topic of your message? Health?
Go with health.
subject. So what's the subject?
Monica.
And the subject can be,
Monica.
I would just put congressionally directed funding.
Congressionally directed funding?
Spending, sorry.
Directed
Spending.
and simple message is gonna be the best message. If they've got a struggle to read your email, it's just gonna make it harder to get anything done. This is, you're welcome to use this language or modify it or do whatever you want with it. Lynn was good enough to get us started in this process. We don't have to invent some language. You can just put something like that in the remarks piece.
And would we say a bill is going to be put forward on this or something like that? Or?
Keep it fairly simple because the process can get complicated, how they do it. 'Cause sometimes it's a separate bill, sometimes it's a bill with a whole bunch of these in it. Sometimes they sneak the bill in as an amendment to some completely unrelated bill. They just like slide out a little paragraph at the end and if people vote on it and don't even vote there kind of thing. That happens a frightening number of times. That's the federal government. But I would just say please support critical funding for Grassroots.
We're supposed to write this whole thing? Yeah.
Or however much of it you want. If you want to
Okay.
parse that down, Wade, that's fine.
Alright.
Just
But
the important thing is, the most critical piece is probably the first sentence and
okay, but I should write out Great Swamp Watershed System, not put GSWA, you might not.
yeah, because they might not, at least the first time. After that, they'll look at the end of it.
Oh, this is for one of those plans that like Chris Abrupta writes?
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. How much did you ask for?
Innovation.
Drop in the bucket.
I'm sorry, what was the subject? Should we were putting?
Directives.
Showing directives.
Okay.
Yes.
Then you have an appointment that they have to be out of here at a certain time.
Okay.
Congression.
Bill, do you know Mark Archimedes said, give me a spot to stand on, I can move the world.
Yeah.
I just heard that in a podcast the other day.
So she's been honest, taking it all in. A few years ago, I was doing this similar exercise with a group of high school students. And we went through with them a whole list of things that they might want to write to their legislators about. And first we focused in on what they thought was the biggest issue for their generation and environment, which was climate change, no big surprise. And then how would we like to see the legislature address this? And their idea was to provide a tax credit for people that would redevelop already developed land instead of developing green acres or undeveloped properties. Would build on farm fields and start building on places that have already been
That's redeveloped,
built. And we put together a short message, just about as long as this one, and sent it out. They were kids from the summer program, so they were from a bunch of different places. So they sent it out to a bunch of different state legislators. It was about a dozen, about 12 or 15 kids. I think about 12. And we got a call back 3 days later from Senator Swicker's saying, "This is a great idea. Sit down and talk to you about it." They're like, "Where did this idea come from?" A bunch of high school students came up with this. And Senator Zwicker was like, "I have to tell you, I'm amazed. I thought, my staff and I thought that this came from professional environmental advocates that people do this for a living. For this to come to a bunch of high school students, is pretty
It's great,
amazing."
they're the future, I mean, they're the ones that are gonna take on all this.
So something like this can definitely get legislators' attention. Some will pay attention, some will not. Keep plugging along, you'll find somebody who can pay attention to it.
Just hit send to Andy.
Just hit
I
send
did
it.
the first and last sentence, is that all right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Is it pay to do it multiple times?
To the same person, or generally no, because once they get, what will happen with a message like this, whether it's the state legislature, member of Congress, US Senator, even the governor's office, because you can do this, you can do the same process through the governor's office. It will go to a staff member, and the staff members will look through it and decide what to do with it. If it's something that gets their attention, as the suggestion that the high school students I was talking about did, they'll take it to their boss and say, "Hey, look, we got this. Somebody wrote this in. I think you ought to take a look at it."
I always like to put a little thank you at the end, like thank you for your continued support to protect natural resources.
Yeah, you're welcome to do that. What did you want to call? Is anybody here good on the phone? Anybody like? What if it's something, maybe it's short notice, the bill's up tomorrow, you want to make sure you get some attention, you got to make a phone call. Is there anybody who's not real keen on making phone calls?
It depends.
How do we deal with it?
it?
I want to call my legislator. I don't really want to talk to somebody because I'm afraid I might get quizzed, or I'm a little shy on the phone. How do I deal with it?
So I've done that many times in Washington, and usually the legislative assistant, will take note of your concern, but say that she'd pass it on to the powers that be, and that's it. They don't usually challenge your opinion.
But let's say you really don't want to talk to the person. How do we deal with it?
All after hours.
Call after hours. Go home,
Oh.
have dinner, watch Jeopardy, whatever it is you're up to that night. At about 7:30, 8 o'clock, pick up the phone and call. You know who's going to be in the office? Nobody. You're going to get the answering machine. It helps if you have a little
A script, right?
script ready to go. Just read it off.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you very much. Hang up the phone.
And they do monitor.
And they absolutely,
Yeah.
every phone call that comes in, they listen to, they write it down. There will be a written record somewhere of that phone call having been made.
And I find you usually get an email back saying we've recorded your position.
I find you tend to get one of three responses, either complete radio silence, which happens a disturbing amount of the time. It's unfortunate. You may get the straightforward acknowledgement. Thanks for your input. Appreciate it. Make sure you vote for us again next month.
So
Like
how
that. Or sometimes you actually get a personal response for, thanks for your notice.
Speaking of radio.
Funding for GSWA. I'll be in contact.
How soon should you expect a response? Like if you send it
Within
email?
3 days. You don't get something
Getting
in 3
radio
days.
silence.
You get radio
Or
silence.
something will be done.
You might have to try a different approach. So if you, all right, so like if you write an email, I wouldn't necessarily send the same email to the same office every time. If I send an email and I don't get a response, then it's time.
Okay.
Does everybody know what Don and Bucco recently, they put in a bill in the Assembly and the Senate asking for extra protection for the Highlands area.
Well,
the
the one I was
DEP
addressing was the Highlands related.
Yeah, I think you said,
We
they
need
said,
to talk.
maybe they just said water environmentally sensitive. And the DEP has to do extra stuff before they approve
Mhm.
something, I think is what the bill says, have you seen that?
Yes.
Is that what
I
it
haven't
was?
read the bill yet.
No.
I did get it.
But that sounds like what they're saying,
Yes.
and they're two Republicans and it may never leave the committee.
May not. Yeah, it may never get a committee hearing, but if they can pick up a Democratic co-sponsor, that would certainly help. Has everybody got this?
Yeah, thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Good luck, I hope you get the funding.
So if you're gonna send a message and they don't have a form, something like this works. Again, like a simple message, simple, straightforward is the easiest one to do it. My name is Bill Kibler, I live at, which your address there, I'm a resident of Califon. Remind them that you are.
We'll get to it.
Remind them, they should know that from the town, and their staffer probably will, but it doesn't hurt to tell them that I'm your constituent. Now you know I'm your constituent, and I know that you know that I'm your constituent. Don't blow me up.
I think what I'd like to vote for you again.
Exactly, well, you could, that's pretty much said that. That's how you tell them I vote for you or don't, so keep that in mind. I'm asking you to, and then you just put your short paragraph in there, thanks for your attention, and then if you want a phone message back or a text message or email or whatever, just put that in there. I have this in there telling them what town you're actually a resident of, because depending on where you live, like I have a Califon mailing address, which is in Hunterdon County, in one legislative district, but I actually live in Washington Township, which is Morris County, which is a different legislative district. So if I give them my address and it says Califon, they're gonna think he's not, why is this guy writing to me?
Yeah.
So I have, that happens often in New Jersey where your address may be in one town.
That's
That's
taken
not really
me too, yeah, I live in Mansfield, it's advocacy.
Yeah, so it's helpful just to spell that out.
At least it's the same distance.
All right, so what questions do you have? I hope you see that this is
Very helpful.
Very
complicated.
confusing.
A simple, the beauty of this really is a simple message. It is the most effective one. You don't need to get technical. If you have the technical background and they want the
Oh,
technical
you didn't
background,
actually.
they will get in touch
Oh,
with you. And if they do get in touch with you, you're welcome to reach out to us if you don't have a technical background, so we can help. We certainly can do that.
Well, Bill, one thing you've made abundantly clear in my mind is volume. These bills that have to be decided upon, so brevity has got to be the key.
Yeah.
Brevity is really important and get straight to the point.
Yeah.
This is who I am, so this is why you care, and this is what I want you to do.
Yeah.
Look at this bill.
And they won't take it personal if you're not,
Short and sweet.
yeah, they don't want you.
Well,
I appreciate that.
I was gonna say.
I used to have somebody who thought public speaking and his favorite line was skip the wind up, just throw the pitch.
Yeah.
And it's, they don't need all the niceties, just get right to the point.
Right.
So I'm thinking of a request I got recently to send a fairly short email that really highlighted why this bill was good.
Mhm.
And all I did was I put it in bold in a few places, but I did try to explain the bill for the people who never read it. Do you think that's useful?
It can be, yes. What's really useful is anytime you can put the message in your own words.
When they see that it's.
If they see the
Same thing,
same exact message 20 times.
Yeah, just
They know it
something,
was either cut and paste, or somebody sent out an email saying,
Right.
send this email to your legislator, sign on here, and we'll send an email for you. Or when they get a whole bunch of them that read exactly the same, they know what's coming. Now that can
That
be
helps
useful.
because they have a number
Yeah, that can be useful because they know, okay, there are people who are at least paying attention a little bit.
Right.
and they're talking to each other.
And they're talking to each other, and there was a lot of them, or there was only one or two,
Yeah.
which could be bad.
Yeah.
So they have some idea that there's some volume there, but it really doesn't have the same effect as in your own words. And as I was talking about earlier, when all it took was 200 people to bring the legislation to this absolute screeching halt. And it was just people picking up the phone and
No
no one saying, what the are you doing?
Right?
It's like, ain't nobody giving me a raise. What are you doing giving yourself a
Yeah, just
raise?
keep raising
I'm the one paying for it.
and we can start that the night before,
Yeah,
because they're gonna come in and say, oh.
yeah. And you know, you don't, it doesn't require, you don't have to have a great deal of technical expertise. You don't have to know anything about the state budgeting process. You're just a taxpayer who's been out of shape. And that's enough to get their attention. Because their primary function in life is to get reelected, and you don't do that if you make people mad. If you make people mad, you're gonna be unemployed.
So Bill, what kind of term limits do the members of the assembly and the members of the senate
There are
have?
no term limits.
Really?
They can
Really?
stay there as long as you keep getting reelected.
Sorry, keep getting
As long
reelected?
as they keep getting reelected, you can stay there for a very long time.
Is there technology for them to just get a list of numbers and where they call from, instead of listening to all those 200 voicemails they may have overnight?
Well, they have people like keep track.
They do
of
it,
all of it.
yeah.
They typically will have like an office administrator who answers the phone and logs all those calls.
Yeah.
And it depends on the individual legislator. Some of them just want a summary. Okay, I got 16 calls last night about climate change, or we got one call about the climate change bill and 16 calls about potholes, or you know, whatever it happens to be. Some of them just want a flavor of what's going on, others want details.
Do you have another question? Well, I, in the body of the email or a letter attached, or does it depend?
It depends. So if you're writing about a specific bill.
Yeah.
And you have specific issues, like very specific issues with the bill, I would send a letter. In fact, what
And then it can be printed.
yes, I might send a message like this. And
In the
say,
body.
I'll follow up with more detail.
Got it.
Um, Some,
And if you're the Raritan headwaters of the Great Swamp,
Right.
can you put it on your
On a letter.
letter?
Yes,
And would that
absolutely.
carry more weight?
Absolutely.
absolutely, yeah, put it on letterhead. And then, in some cases, I don't think Andy has it. No, Andy doesn't. And in some cases, some of the legislators have a place where you can attach it.
Oh, okay.
If they don't, just send them a message, kind of tee it up for them and tell them you're gonna follow up with a letter that you can send to the office either by mail or some people still have faxes, you can still do that. So it's not, I see somebody with a fax number. I accidentally called a fax number last week because I didn't realize that.
And it made that
Still have
funny
fax-
sound.
Yes. I haven't heard that in a long
Throw
time.
that.
People still have fax number. That's weird.
So,
Okay, any other questions?
No, that was
great.
Well, thank you all very much for coming out. I appreciate having a small group to do this. This is important.
You had a meeting with Ed Batasek
Yes,
recently.
yes.
What went on in that meeting? Did
So
you
for
feel
those
that he was listening to you?
Yes, I did. For those who don't know, Ed Potosnik, is the acting commissioner of the Department of Environmental Conservation, or excuse me, Department of Environmental Protection. He hasn't been confirmed yet by the Senate, which will probably happen in May, but basically he's the new commissioner at DEP. Ed came from the environmental community, he was the executive director of the New Jersey League of Conservation Voters. So he is familiar with our issues and he knows most of us in the environmental community. I and a half a dozen other folks had a meeting with him a week and a half ago, down in his brand new offices in Trenton, DEP. So we got to meet with Ed. We met with the chief of staff, the new chief of staff for DEP, who's Henry Guida, who also used to be New Jersey League of Conservation Voters, and he went from there to the Board of Public Utilities, where he was most recently the chief of staff. So he's moved over to DEP. So he's also someone we know. And Joe Sebo, who's the deputy commissioner, who just retired 3 weeks ago from a 45-year career in the Army Corps of Engineers. And he actually had also been at one point an assistant commissioner at DEP. The Corps of Engineers sent him on loan in New Jersey.
Did he impress you?
Joe or?
Yeah, Joe.
I've known Joe for quite a while. He's good. He's the The advantage to having Joe there is he's the one who really understands how a very large administrative agency functions. And you know, Henry's coming from BPU, which is a similar administrative agency, but much smaller. Joe's really the one who understands how a large
So-
administrative agency with a lot of regulatory.
So we're lucky to have him?
functions. Yes, we're very.
That's your opinion?
Yes.
Okay.
I think he wasn't cranky, but he was joking about the fact that he was retired for 3 weeks and they dragged him out. So we had a meeting with them, it was more of an introductory meeting. We kind of laid out a few of the priorities we have and what we'd like to see out of that office. I will tell you one of the things. Here's a big surprise I focused on.
Water.
Exactly. One of the issues we had with the Murphy administration is water was never a priority. At the DEP or at the governor's office, and that was a source of constant irritation. So we're hoping that this administration will do that. He talked a little bit about his priorities, and we set up quarterly meetings with the team. So we're gonna go down the trend and meet with them once a quarter. But the first meeting was very good, very friendly, very cordial. You know, they're all still getting their feet on the ground down there. The test will come the first time we butt heads with them. Because it can be, in the policy arena, it can be more difficult working with your friends than with your enemies. You know, when you have an administration that's not friendly to the environment, it's easy to call them out on it in public. And you don't have to be bashful about it. When it's your friends, you can be a little about calling them out in public because they can do other things for you. You know, they might be doing some good stuff that you really want them to keep doing, so you don't want to drag their name through the mud, but they're really not doing the one thing that's really critical. So we'll see what happens when we start having differences of opinion. But right now, everybody's getting along great. We're still in the honeymoon phase.
So did anybody actually say anything?
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
Except on mine, and then I wrote to Senator Andy Kim how much we'd appreciate congressionally supported funding for the Luwanica Brook Restoration Project. But this really won't be necessary because Lynn Applebaum says we're going to get it from Impact 100. We're going to get full funding from Impact 100. So, you know,
That's a
thanks for your consideration. It's not necessary.
It's another one.
I don't think anybody else loved it, but I loved your Newton's three laws way you had them.
Yeah.
Yes, I would think about it. Thank you.
Look at everybody.
Right?
I will be remiss if I don't say thank you to all of you, because I know you're all supporters of Great Swamp Watershed Association. It's really important. You know, we're a 501c3 nonprofit, and just remind your friends and neighbors.
Come out to our events.
Yes. Come out to our events.
Introduce your friends to us.
Their support too. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill.